Hey guys, it's Sebastian from AskSebby, and today we're going to look at the new Verizon card. As a starting point, this card does not make sense for you if you're not someone looking to stay with Verizon for the next probably 2 to 5 years, if you're someone not on a Verizon postpaid plan at the moment, and also if you're someone who is not focused on cashback. If you're focused on travel, then this card is not really a good pick. If any of those things apply to you, then I'd recommend using that chapters tool at the bottom in order to skip to the middle point where we talk about some alternatives to build a similar card to the multipliers here. Also, if you like the fact that I actually gave you an answer right away instead of forcing you to watch a 5 or 10 minute video, consider giving this a thumbs up. And if you like stuff like this, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. So you might be thinking, why are you mentioning this up front? The reason is because you're not earning cash back with this card, you earn Verizon cash, meaning that you can only use it towards Verizon. At the moment of filming this in July 2020, you also need to be on a postpaid plan in order to get this card. If you cancel your plan with Verizon, you end up losing the Verizon Dollars that you've accumulated. Same thing with if you change account owners. You can still keep the card so nothing bad happens there, but you end up losing out on rewards, discounts, bonuses, and also the Verizon Dollars, making the card pretty much useless. If you are sticking with Verizon long term though, then this card does make a lot of sense because the multipliers are pretty impressive. You're going to get 4% Verizon cash on gas and groceries, 3% on dining, 2% on Verizon, and 1% everywhere else. We're mostly focused on that 4% and the 3% because there's other cards out there that give you 2% back on everything. You can use this towards your phone bill, internet, accessories, and also phones. This is going to be a Visa card. It has no annual fee, and there's also no foreign transaction fees. Not too big of a deal, but if you're looking for a no foreign transaction fee, no annual fee card, then this is not too bad of a pick. Be aware that the card is also issued by Synchrony Bank. I'm fine with this, but some people really hate them, and also because their interface tends to be a bit behind. As of July 2020, there is an intro bonus, but it's something that's distributed over 24 months, so it's not something that you're getting up front. So I think you're getting about $4.16 off of your statement for the next 24 months.
100 divided by 24.
416. There's 2 other benefits, but one of them, to me at least, is kind of a BS benefit. The one that I think is a pretty good one is that you get 2 free travel pass days per calendar year. If you're someone traveling and you're going to use this anyways, then it can save you some money. The one that I think is kind of BS is going to be the auto pay discount. So reading about the auto pay discount using this Verizon credit card, it sounds pretty good, but you can already get this with a debit card. So to me, it's a bit of a fake benefit because if you can already get it right now, then there's not really any marginal value. If all of us got 4% back on our debit cards for the grocery store, the supermarket, we probably wouldn't care about other credit cards offering that because that doesn't move the needle. You're already getting that. So the big question is, should you get this card? I think if you're someone who spends a lot of money on those 4% back categories, then you might as well get it while you still can. So 4% for gas sounds really good, and there is a reason why there's other issuers who have gotten rid of that as a benefit, such as the Dux Unlimited card. If you're someone who's a trucker, if you're someone who drives for Uber every day, then you probably put a lot of gas spend, and this makes a lot of sense. Same thing with the 4% back for the grocery stores. There's a reason why the Blue Cash Everyday and the Blue Cash Preferred have a $6,000 cap per year, and the Gold card has a $25,000 cap. It's because there's going to be certain people who push through that, so this card definitely makes a lot of sense. On that note, if you're someone who wants to support our channel, we do have links for M1 Finance, Webull, and Public down below in the description box. Worst case, it's a pretty easy way to try out new products and also get paid in shares for doing that. Hello, time travelers. So our goal is to figure out how to replicate the Verizon card as closely as possible. In case you skipped it, we have 4% back on gas, 4% back on grocery stores, 3% back on dining, and then 2% back on Verizon. So given this, we're going to look at some alternatives and then some of the pros and the cons of those alternatives. The first one, because I know it's going to be a comment down below, is what about the American Express Gold card? So that earns 4x back on supermarkets up to $25,000 in the US, and then 4x back on dining. If you're someone playing the cashback game, I think it's really hard to justify this given the $250 upfront and the fact that if you want the maximum cashback, the value in the points, you're going to also need to get a Schwab Platinum card, which is another $550. That setup's going to run you $800 in annual fees. There's value there. There are other reasons to do that, but I think it's going to be hard to justify for a lot of people. Otherwise, the 4x back is mostly going to be good for international first and business class, given that that's the ideal use case. If you're after economy travel, it's possible, but it is a bit tough, and there's some other sweet spot things, but that requires a lot more research. So the benefit is that you can technically get more value, but it's really leaning towards the travel side rather than the cashback side. If you want to run that cashback setup, it's going to be pretty expensive, which is the main disadvantage, and it's a lot more complicated. One of the biggest complaints I've seen about the gold card is that in order to maximize the value, you have to do a lot more legwork. Number 2 is going to be running a 5x or 5% category rotating setup. So this is likely going to include the Freedom card, the Cover It card, City Dividend, and also the US Bank Cash Plus card. The big benefit is that you're going to be relatively covered throughout the year, and when you're not, you can typically buy gift cards that you can use in the future, and 5% is more than 4%. The main disadvantage is that a lot of people who like cashback really don't like dealing with this type of setup because it requires you to figure out which card to use when. My argument against that though is that it probably takes you maybe 30 seconds every 3 months, and then if you really want to keep it simple, you can label the cards. You can even buy a label maker. If you don't want to deal with that though, then that's fine. Or maybe you have a player too that doesn't want to deal with your shenanigans. If you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, that's way too much work. Yeah, that's really cool, but I'd rather only have one card. That one card would probably be the Wells Fargo Propel card. You're going to get 3x back on gas stations and also dining. So technically, if you want to travel, you can get a bit more value there, but let's focus on the cashback side. So it's effectively 3% back. There's a bunch of other categories that are covered here as well, and I think it's pretty competitive for that one card solution. The main advantage is that it covers a lot more ground and the fact that you're not stuck with Verizon long term. A lot of people I know like to network hop when it makes sense if there's different promotions that make it very lucrative to network hop, so it means that you can do that and then you're not too stressed out. The main disadvantage is that some people really don't like Wells Fargo, so even if there is value there, same thing for United, if there's a good deal, if you don't like them, then it doesn't make sense for you. The Chase AARP card is another interesting pick. It gets you 3% back at gas stations as well as for dining. So no, you don't need to be 65 to get this card. You can get this even if you're someone who's 20. The main advantage is that the intro bonus is going to be right now rather than over 24 months. The main disadvantage is pretty obvious that it's 3% instead of 4%. This also brings up another argument of whether Verizon ends up keeping these categories at 4% or whether they end up bringing caps in just because they're relatively easy to abuse. I talked about this a bit more towards the end of that review part, but there's a reason that other cards in this space either got rid of those categories for gas or they have caps for the grocery store. The next one's going to be the US Bank Altitude Go card, which gets you 2% back on gas stations, 2% back on grocery stores, and 4% back on dining. If you want a bit more information on that card, I'd recommend watching the recent video we did. I think it's fine, I think it's a good pick, but if you're someone who has very high velocity, if you added a lot of new accounts recently, then it might be hard to get approved for it. Next is going to be the Capital One Saver and the Saver One. The Saver gets you 4% back on dining but has an annual fee, and the Saver One gets you 3% back with no annual fee. Depending on how you value those other variables, it's pretty much a break-even analysis, so pretty straightforward there if you want to run the numbers. Next, we have the Costco card, which gets you 4% back on gas, up to $7,000 in spend, and then 3% back for dining. There's a few other reasons to get this card, such as the double extended warranty, which I think makes a lot of sense, but beyond that, I think it's really hard to justify for me because oftentimes I end up taking breaks from the card. So for me, for example, I ended up loading up on stuff in January, and then I ended up letting my Costco membership lapse because I didn't spend that much last year, and then I ended up only recently re-uploading a new membership. Reminder that for this card, you need to have and also to keep a Costco membership. The last two cards are going to be the Blue Cash Everyday and the Blue Cash Preferred by American Express. So both of them earn pretty well for both gas stations as well as grocery stores, but there is an annual fee of $95 for the Blue Cash Preferred. Also for the grocery stores, there is going to be a cap, so something to be aware of. If you compare the Verizon card directly with the BCP card to the Blue Cash Preferred, you want to look at the break-even point to figure out when it makes sense. So ignoring all the other intro bonuses, all the other benefits, and all the other multipliers, only focusing on grocery stores, that break-even point is going to be $4,750. So at that point, you're impartial to either card, and then if it's more than that, then you would want to get the Blue Cash Preferred. If it's less, then you'd want to get the Verizon. So there's definitely a lot of different options out there, and I think you need to pick the cards that make the most sense for you. Just because I'm after travel cards, just because I would bonus hunt if I was in your situation, doesn't mean that that makes sense for everyone. On that note, if you are someone looking to support the channel, we do have links for Webull, M1 Finance, as well as Public down below in the description box. So those are going to be investing ones, and one that I've really liked that's not investing, but for managing my net worth is going to be Personal Capital. My question for you guys is, what are your thoughts on the Verizon card? Also, if you're someone against that card, if you don't want to get it for whatever reason, what setup are you currently running, or what would you run? Let me know and the community know in the comments down below. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you know anyone else who benefit from what we just talked about, share this with them. I'll probably help them out. But otherwise, hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time.